Hi, my name is Karen Fabian and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and I'm here to just talk a little bit about the shoulders. I recently posted a 30-minute webinar on shoulder anatomy and I got a really good question that I thought would make for a really good quick video and tutorial on the shoulder. So I'm going to read you the email, which comes from Abby. And Abby says, "Hi Karen, thank you for the webinar on the shoulder today. I've definitely been teaching to relax your shoulders when the arms are up in Warrior One and Crescent Lunge. I'm so glad to hear not to do that now and the why behind it. However, scrunching up the shoulders should be discouraged in general, right? I still hear this a lot and find myself telling students to draw the shoulders down the back. Does that even have any meaning? What are the appropriate times and poses to suggest that? Thank you for this. I love the 30-minute layout. It is so helpful, efficient, and full of practical tidbits. Abby." All right, so there's quite a couple of things going on in that email in terms of questions. So let me just give you the backdrop if you haven't watched the webinar. And just as a little side note, the webinar is on my website, which is barebonesyoga.com. If you go to the webinar page, which is under the teacher section, you'll see the link. It's the most recent webinar and you can check it out. In this webinar, I was talking about, in one part, the movement of the shoulder blades themselves. So this is different from the movement the shoulder joint makes. So the shoulder joint does things like flex and extend and abduct and adduct and externally rotate and internally rotate. But the shoulder blades themselves, the scapula, they move too. And it's going to be a little hard to show you on the skeleton because you can see the shoulder blades are nailed in. But on my body, I can show you what happens. And so I was specifically talking about in the webinar how when we abduct the shoulder joint, so abduct is moving away from the midline of the body. So when we abduct the shoulder blade moves in what's called upward rotation. So this lower tip here moves out to the side. And if you were to take your hand to the lower tip, so I'm talking this one, right? As you abduct your arm, you can feel that lower tip move laterally. And the reason it does that is because the head of the humerus needs to clear the acromion process of the scapula. And the acromion, right, think of the acromion as the high point. The acromion, if that scapula didn't tip up, right, and up meaning this part of the shoulder blade goes up, then the head of the humerus would jam into it. So this scapula humeral rhythm is what needs to happen in order for the head of the humerus to clear this and not jam into it when you abduct your arm. So how does this all relate to Warrior One and that cue that Abby was talking about? So many times back in the day, but I still even hear it today, teachers would instruct students in Warrior One to lift the arms up and drop the shoulders. So I'm going to show you from the back. Lift the arms up and drop the shoulders. And you can see how awkward that looks. And if you do it as you're watching this video, you're going to feel how awkward it feels. But for some reason, people were hyper-focused on, you see this kind of scrunchiness here? That. And somewhere, somehow, somebody must have said, oh, we don't want that scrunchiness there. So you want to depress the shoulder blades, drop them down the back. But you can see now how that cue goes completely against the anatomy of the body. And so this is one of those examples, and there's quite a few out there, where teachers who have a limited understanding of anatomy are cueing in such a way, maybe they picked up the cue from somebody else and they assumed that that person knew what they were talking about. Or they didn't verify it, or they don't know anatomy and just thought it would be helpful to suggest, but it's incorrect. And so what we want to do is just instruct people to move their arms in the way necessary for Warrior One, and don't mess with the shoulder blades, right? We don't need to tell them to do anything. The shoulder blades, the body in its infinite wisdom, it's going to do what it needs to do to allow the head of the humerus to clear the acromion of the scapula, and it's all good, okay? But then, remember, Abby goes on to say, I've definitely been teaching to relax your shoulders when the arms are up in Warrior One. So that's this thing that we're talking about. I'm so glad to hear not to do that now and the why behind it. However, scrunching up the shoulders should be discouraged in general, right? I still hear this a lot and find myself telling students to draw the shoulders down the back. Does that even have any meaning? Okay, so let's talk about that. So what does it mean to draw the shoulder blades down the back? So we talked a second ago about upward rotation. So that's tipping this part up so the whole scapula moves this way on the back. So if we were to relax the shoulders down the back, it's pretty clear that that means the shoulder blades are going to slightly depress. So that's going to look something like this versus this. So this is elevation, this is depression. And so what Abby's talking about here is this cue to relax the shoulders down the back, which you can see most often accompanies external rotation. It's kind of hard to drop the shoulders down the back if you're internally rotated. So what poses, think about postures where we're trying to stretch the pectoral muscles, and that is the resulting effect of depressing the shoulder blades even slightly. Right? We don't want to do anything in such a way that we blow out the front of the chest or exaggerate whatever the action is. So if we just drop the shoulder blades a little bit, you can see the length across the front of the body. If you're doing it as you're watching this video, you can feel it in the body. It's pretty clear. So what postures would have this? Well, Tadasana, even something like eagle, certainly upward dog. So thinking about poses where we're externally rotating the shoulders, something like side lunge, side angle lunge. So things like that would be opportunities as a teacher to cue your students to relax the shoulders down the back. But remember, the key word there is relax. We're not asking them to depress or to shove or to push. And so this is where languaging is really important. The words we use are going to kind of inform the students of not only the action, but kind of the how much to take the action. So if I say push, that's a harsher word than if I say relax. So you kind of get the idea of that. And if you're a teacher watching this, you've probably integrated cues into your classes and words you like to use to get just the right amount of action from your students. So again, just kind of keeping in mind this particular action of abducting the shoulder results in that upward rotation so the head of the humerus can clear this high end or acromion process of the scapula. We don't need to tell students to depress the shoulder blade. In addition, I'll just add on, this depression of the shoulder blade here also gets in the way of the congruency of the joint. So we want the connection between the head of the humerus here and the glenoid fossa to be a good connection. And you can just kind of feel when you take the arm up and you don't mess with the position of the shoulder blade, you've got good contact there, good support. But when you drop the shoulder blade, you can start to feel the gap there. And certainly that's not a huge deal when you're not weight bearing, but if I were to do that in down dog, or if I were to do that in handstand, it'd make a big difference because now I'm using my arms like legs and I'm messing with the congruency of the joint. So I hope you found this helpful, just a little bit of clarification. I encourage you to go to my website, barebonesyoga.com, go to the webinar page, and watch the webinar. As Abby said, she likes the format. I've condensed the format of my webinars to just 30 minutes so that they're fairly quick to watch. I'll just tell you right out of the gate, in the webinar, as I often do, I share teaching information mostly focused on anatomy, but then I give you opportunities at the end of the webinar to pick up some of my resources so you can dive in even more and learn even more. And why do I do this? Because I want you to have a bigger impact on your students. And one of the best ways to do that is to really get this stuff. And, you know, using cues that are informed on your end by good, solid anatomical knowledge. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to offer you a discount on my anatomy book, Structure and Spirit, which also goes into spiritual themes, so it's a good blend. And I'm offering you this for $26 instead of $31.99 as it is on Amazon. And then I also offer you a discount on one of my online courses. So take a look at the webinar. Go to the website, barebonesyoga.com. When you go to the website, you're going to see a number of things you can download as well, which are free, worksheets on different things. The homepage has a worksheet on building a yoga sequence, how to build a yoga sequence. People have really been liking that. And there are other things as well when you visit the site that you might want to pick up. If you have any questions, please send me an email off of the website. And I'd love to hear from you with other content that you might like to see in a future webinar. So thank you so much for watching, and namaste.